Bluegrass Jam Along is proud to be sponsored by Collins Guitars and Mandolins, each and every one built from the sound up in Austin, Texas. Hi, this is Matt, and you're listening to Bluegrass Jam Along, the podcast for anyone and everyone who loves bluegrass. Hey everybody, welcome back to Bluegrass Jam Along. This is a bite-sized episode and it features Rachel Baiman, who I interviewed a couple of years ago about her fantastic record Common Nation of Sorrow. And the reason I'm putting this one out this week is I've just interviewed Katie Harford Hogue about the John Hartford Fiddle Tune Project Volume 2 Julia Bell record. And I was just thinking that when I spoke to Rachel, we chatted a bit about John Hartford and his influence on her, so I thought I'd listen back to that and see if there was a chunk that I could pull out that might be relevant before I put out the episode with Katie. And listening back to it, I realised the stuff about John wasn't all that much of the content of the episode, but I found this chunk that I've just put in this bite-sized episode now, and it was fascinating just listening back. And sometimes I forget the conversations I've had, or I forget details of them, and it's great to listen again. And this little section of the interview where we talk about sort of connection and communication and conversation in music, I think it was fascinating and I really enjoyed listening back to it. So I thought I would put it out again as a little bite-sized episode. If you haven't heard the full interview with Rachel, do go and listen to it, and do go and listen to Common Nation of Sorrow, because it is a great record. But yes, I'm going to leave this here for you to have a listen to. I hope you find something kind of inspiring or useful or interesting in it. I certainly did listening again, and I really enjoyed it. So here comes Rachel Baiman. There's something that you'd said, and I think in another interview I heard, and you said, to me, political conversations on the internet are largely harmful and not really helpful. So I've shifted my idea about what is a helpful form of communication, and songs and art are always, to me, going to be the best way to get something across. And this is the bit I love, without shutting someone down. Mm-hmm. So an approachable, welcoming, warm sound to deliver those kind of lyrics is a very interesting approach to me. Yeah,
it's also, to me, a lot about writing through storytelling and writing through emotion. I think if you think about having a conversation with someone, let's say you're sitting down with someone that really doesn't share the same beliefs as you do about, whatever issue, maybe something that's a little more nuanced than I'm racist, or, there are these kind of issues that we just run into, but I think a lot of them are rooted in this sort of feeling anger and feeling you don't have any options in life. But if someone says to you, well, I don't think we should have universal health care, it's that's a very difficult place to have a conversation. Whereas if someone says, I feel really frustrated with my life, I feel like I've disappointed my family and I can never live up to their expectations, it's you're never going to have an argument about that. That's just how someone feels. You're going to feel connected to them. You're going to want to know more about why. And then when you end up talking about healthcare, there's going to be so much more empathy there and so much more ability to see someone as a person. So I think with songs, and any form of art, it's really important to infuse your message with emotion and story and not make it feel like a brick wall. It's to me, I always try to come back to this idea. I'm there is a time and place for political rhetoric, but I'm not a politician. I don't have to have an A to D set out agenda to tell people what they should think. There is room for nuance and the reality of life and how people experience things, which is a gift of art,
Yeah. And I think that's really true. There's so few things that we have, in the media we consume, that has the space for the actual nuance of a debate. It's sort of, you get somebody in from one side and somebody in from the other side and hope they fall out because it's entertaining TV. And it's not an actual conversation.
It's also just like, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. It's also just the kind of reality that people are not even tuning into the same thing. So it's almost like there's no real thing that everyone's watching collectively, which is a huge issue, I think.
Yeah, and it's interesting, that idea of storytelling, because songs have that ability that a short story has to just show you something and not tell you anything, to just turn your head and go, look at that for a minute, and leave you to interpret that in whatever way you want. Whereas longer form things like a movie or a novel sometimes end up answering the questions for you. A song or a short story can just direct your attention somewhere and leave the rest to you. And it's a really nice way to experience a question rather than an answer almost.
That's a really interesting interpretation. I love short stories, and I do totally correlate them with songs. I've always thought more like, oh, and then the novel's like the full album. But I see what you're saying. Like sometimes it hasn't too much of a conclusion or too much of an answer, you know, but yeah, I don't think it has to. Like, did you see After Sun?
I didn't.
That's a movie. It's a beautiful movie, but it's definitely a question. There is no resolution, but you feel like, oh. So yeah, I think a great movie or a great book can also do that. But of course, there's a lot of variance in movies and books. Just like maybe there's more. Short stories don't have a lot of commercial value, so they might maintain that kind of nuance more so than like a genre fiction where you like really want to follow or a Hollywood movie that has like a very intense expectation of what people want to see.
Yeah, and that what you were saying about stories and emotion and sort of personal, giving somebody some emotion to latch onto rather than a sort of opinion almost. So one of my favourite songwriters is Steve Earle, who can take an issue like the death penalty and he can write a song like Billy Austin, which is from the point of view of somebody on death row. He can also write a song like Ellis Unit 1, which is the same thing, but written from the point of view of somebody whose job is to administer the sort of lethal injection. And he's not telling you anything that you should think. He's just going, look at how two people experience this thing, which he has a very strong opinion about. And he just shows you some character and a story and a way into thinking about it in a different way. Yeah,
I think that's the whole art of it. I think that is what makes a great song.
And I think that this, just listening to this record, just songs like She Don't Know What to Sing About Anymore, and just those, there's a lot in them, and yet they're also pretty simple and delicate, and there's they have layers, and you can spend time with them and sit with them and get as much as you want out of them, but they're also very immediate as well.
The layers thing is really interesting with songs because thank you for those kind words. I think with songs, the great song, because people don't always, well, first of all, I'm a lyrical listener, but a lot of people aren't. So you also have to convey musically what's happening so that someone can feel the song to some extent without even totally hearing the lyrics. And, for someone who's so like myself, like I don't think anyone's ever going to get the full extent of the song without hearing lyrics, because that's really what I'm about. But hopefully they get some of it enough to kind of want to be interested in more. And then you have the chorus, which is like, it needs to be able to catch people because that might be the only thing they remember the first time they hear the song. So it's like that, the craft of making those layers of a song work is so fascinating to me. And I think can be really, it's different for every song. And it's really like a lifelong pursuit of getting that perfected. And it feels so good when you feel like you've gotten close to that and people are going to listen to it. I fall in love with songs, and the best thing is when you listen to it for the 10th time and you hear something new and you're like, oh my gosh, it's so smart. I was listening to Tyler Childers' Gemini the other day, and I always thought that was just like a cute thing about him being wild and kind of all over the place. And then there's this whole thing about like how the Gemini is a twin sign, and he's like, they'll cut me in half and they'll send part back home and the other half on the road. And I was like, that is so brilliant. Like he took this kind of like really popular cultural reference. Like people are obsessed with horoscopes right now. And he could have just left it there, you know, but he kind of went deeper into what the star sign actually means and what it means for him. And then he was like, and now I'm going to turn the star sign into a physical manifestation of me. And I'm going to talk about how I have these two sides. I don't know. It's just, I love when you find things like that in songs.
Yeah. And it's that kind of thing where you listen and think, wow, like I wonder if they meant that. And of course they did, because people think about this stuff and then people are hiding little clues for you. And like there's nuance in there that 90% of people won't even hear or see or find. But if you find it, obviously it's been placed there for you to excavate at some point.
Exactly.
And it's totally so true what you say about songs. Like there's a song like Wichita Lineman is such a evocative song, even if you don't listen to the lyrics. But if you do listen to the lyrics, they still don't make a huge amount of sense. They're not like a really clear narrative, but it's a very, like you feel a place and a certain kind of, you can feel the warmth of the air almost. And that's so that a song can do that without, and then if you add the lyrical content on it, that sinks in and draws you further and further.
The setting, you know, the music is a lot of it is about the setting and putting you in the right place to experience the song.
And that's fascinating, because there's a song, Lovers and Leavers, on this record that you wrote as a love song that came to be something else to you. Because you talk about having been diagnosed with bipolar, between having written the song and recording the song, and that's fascinating that it comes to mean something more to you with a different context.
It was totally wild, actually. Like it just shows me how important these creative pursuits are for everyone. Because even if you're not doing something professionally, if you don't know how you feel about something, or if you can't understand what you think about something or what you feel about something, and you try to create, it will often come out and show you what it is that you're trying to understand. And I guess for me, it was like, I thought that I was writing about this like romantic situation, and I was actually trying to understand what was happening in my brain and my body. And I kind of told myself what was happening. You know, I mean, of course I had an actual diagnosis, but that was later after, you know, having to be like said, hey, like, have you thought about this? And then when I go back and I look at the song and I'm like, there's no middle, only highs, only lows. That's literally bipolar disorder. Like that is the definition. And it's like right there in the songs. It's like all the clues are there. So I don't know. I think that's amazing. And I'm grateful for that, because that's like something in me helping me, you know?
Yeah. And that's fascinating, that sense that the process of creating, it's not like you have a thing and you're just giving birth to it. It's like you're creating it as you go. I mean, I learned that a while ago about having it. I used to think a conversation was two people telling each other what they thought about stuff. And it's not a conversation, is you working out what you feel about stuff. Like the thing that you actually mean is something you say and then go away and think, that's what I think. We'll be right back with you just after this. The long-awaited Hill Country series from Collings Guitars represents a new voice in their acoustic lineup. Rooted deep in the bluegrass world, these new Dreadnought and OM models feature a strong fundamental tone with a dry, warm and woody character that's sure to catch the attention of players who hold the vintage instruments of the 30s in their highest regard. Watch world-class pickers Jake Workman, Kenny Smith and Bob Minner perform with new Hill Country instruments on the Collings Guitars YouTube channel, and learn more at collingsguitars.com.
You know what? If more people understood that, conversations would be much better.
Yeah.
Because I totally agree with you. And I think that a lot of people do think that conversations are two people telling each other what they think. And that is something that actually drives me so crazy. Like I can get really exhausted by people quickly. And that is the number one thing that like will make me just shut down. And if somebody just talks at me and I just don't feel like there's any, it's like, why are we even talking? you already know all this, what you want to say. And I don't feel like you're getting anything back from me. So might as well just not. So I think that's a beautiful observation that I'm going to steal and explain to people from now on.
And it's sort of come up in conversations about bluegrass and old time and playing tunes with people, and how music is a conversation, and particularly in improvised music, like a lot of bluegrass and old time is and can be, that if you sit down with somebody and they just play you a tune and all the licks they know, and they've decided what they're going to play and they just deliver you all their licks, that's nowhere near as much fun as somebody playing you. Because with conversation, I'm using phrases and words that I use every day. I'm not inventing a new phrase every time I speak. I'm largely talking cliches and accepted things. But you're able to express some new thoughts in between those. And that musical conversation as a way of generating a thing that happens in that moment and then it's gone is also, I think that's one of the reasons I love this kind of music, is because you've got that song
interplay.
And it's always something that's self-renewing every time it happens.
Yeah, I think that's a really astute observation. And I think it's also something that can separate highly commercial music from music that has a lot of life in it, no matter the genre. But sometimes you hear music that is crafted for commercial success, and it's like they already knew what they were going to make before they tried making it, and it's like you're just being told the song. Like, it's kind of what you're saying about the conversation. But I think anytime if you talk about jamming, or which is obviously a huge part of these traditional music forms, like a lot of it is about interacting with people and meeting them where they're at. So if you decide you want to just, I mean, a lot of times in Nashville, it's a normal thing to say, hey, do you want to come over and play some tunes? And, that's true all over the world with these styles. And you show up and you might have a couple things in mind, but like it might just take a very different turn musically. And if you're not able to adapt to that, it's going to be really unfun. Like, you have to just say, okay, what are you playing? And try to respond to that and let it influence your own playing in that setting. And we kind of joke sometimes in Nashville that, like, if you go to a party that's not like a jam party, you kind of don't know how to interact with people, because like you get so used to translating that to the musical. It's like an easier way for musicians sometimes to have a conversation, because, people get shy or you don't know what to bring up, and you can just be like, let's play a tune.
And that's really interesting, because you are also having a conversation at the same time. Like, if somebody's playing backup and somebody else is playing the tune, both of which are improvised in some form. Yeah. Like with a conversation, I speak, you speak, I speak, you speak. If we talk at the same time, nobody knows. But with music, you are talking at the same time. And so there's just a removal of the transactional nature of it as well. So it's just such a lovely way to communicate with somebody at the same time as them. Yeah, absolutely. And I find it really interesting that as a songwriter who sort of came to songwriting after years of being an instrumentalist and being a very thoughtful kind of creative songwriter, and very connected to what that means to you, I always find it fascinating when songwriters choose to put a cover on their record. And you've obviously got John Hartford's Self-Made Man on here, which thematically obviously fits with the rest of the record pretty strong. But I'm really interested why that ended up on there. Yeah, well, it was kind of it is a cover, but it's also something that I kind of reworked and added to. So in a way, it's like I wanted to represent it, So I found it, and I just thought this song's so brilliant, and a lot of people don't know about it. It's not like a very common Hartford song, I think largely because the original feels quite unfinished. It's like a fragment. It's not something that you would jam on because there's like no chorus, So I wanted to kind of like finish it out so it could kind of have a new life out in the world. And thematically, it just was so on brand for this record. And I love the fact that this song that was written so long ago is still
maybe even more relevant. And I love feeling that connection to John Hartford as a songwriter, that, you know, like he believed these similar things to me, and that means a lot to me. And so yeah, that's why I chose that song. But I do feel like there is something to be said for having a break from your own voice on a record, whether that's through co-writes or covers. And I've had like 1 or 2 covers on every album I've made, and often people respond to those the best. Maybe because they like, well, maybe they're just better, but like also because they just kind of stick out a little bit because it's a little bit different. You know, it's like it's a break from my style. Co-writes can do that too. So I don't know, like you always want a record to feel cohesive and like true to you, but I also think there's something about embracing that collaborative nature that can add a little sparkle to an album and just kind of mix it up a little bit.
And it is really sort of, it's not a song I knew before, but there's just that framing of like we've had decades now of being sort of conditioned to believe that we're individuals and we're not a society, and that we are, and that anybody who gets anywhere has done it through hard work and pulling themselves up by their bootstraps. And if they can do it, you can do it. And it's a really frustrating narrative when we're all in all of it together and we're all part of it. And just it's such a beautiful phrasing of that. And,
I know. I love that about John Hartford. He always does things with humor and humility. It's like it's literally a question. Even though you get the vibe of the song, he's not really telling you anything. He's just saying, I wonder how many, you know, like it's exactly what we were talking about, like leaving the question in the song. And it's funny, you know, and it's like, I don't know, it has that magic, that John Hartford magic for sure.
And I think both my country and your country have been through a period of having somebody in charge who very much was about their own brand and their own individual
and that narrative,
marvelousness, and so it very much is of now. But songs that remind you that maybe the cult of individualism isn't all it's cracked up to be are a really nice thing at this point in time.
Totally, and I think it's something we all need. Even there's these really blatant examples, obviously, like Trump being like, I'm self-made when he inherited all of this money and, you know, has always had all this privilege, and it's just obviously so false. But I also think it plays into the idea that the cult of individualism, I think everyone feeling that they need to be their own brand and their own kind of commercial export in this weird way. And I think like I know that I feel that pressure all the time as a musician, and I know that everyone feels that pressure on the internet. And I think we're starting to feel like that comes with this big high, because all of a sudden you're somebody and only you are that person. But that also comes with this immense anxiety and pressure. And I think that as a society, we're starting to be like, actually, maybe we don't all want to be, sorry, this cat, I'm not in my house, but this cat's going crazy. Maybe it's not, maybe we all just want to be part of a community. Maybe there's something to be said for not being the leader of your own show all the time. And so it's definitely something I've been thinking about a lot.
Yeah, it's fine. I hadn't thought about it in those terms, but that just the social media world where everybody wants to be an influencer has sort of turned us into, it's a bit like what we were talking about earlier about conversations and listening versus just saying, like, it's sort of turned us all into broadcasters, where what we do is we put things out. Yes. And we're all furiously going through our apps to see how many likes we've had, and we're not looking at anybody else's content. We're just going, like, in the little fruit machine of social media, have I had a payout? And it turns communication back into a one-way thing, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's also part of the polarity, that we're experiencing, that everything's one way and that everything's a statement rather than a conversation. So.
Bluegrass Jam Along is proud to be sponsored by Collins Guitars and Mandolins, each and every one built from the sound up in Austin, Texas.